Hey guys, it's Matt. Before chapter 57, important disclaimer or fine print. I've gotten some creepy emails over the many months recently and generally over the years that, what happens if you actually hit on something very, very close to the mark, Matt? Or what if you're getting close in certain areas to figuring out certain things? Or who will be upset by that? And those types of emails. Well, the disclaimer is this. If you didn't want regular people examining reality, trying to figure it out, somebody shouldn't have put an inflated tire at the bottom of the World Trade Center. Okay? Somebody shouldn't put an inflated tire at the bottom of the World Trade Center. And they probably shouldn't have floated down a passport with a little cigarette burn on it either. And they probably shouldn't have set up a scholarship fund by JMU same day. The deceased body wasn't even cold. And they probably shouldn't have a grieving father smiling and giggling like he was just told the best knock-knock joke in the world. See, if certain parties don't want regular people examining it and looking very closely at the clues and implying common sense, then those things probably shouldn't have been left down. See how that works? So, I'm just following the breadcrumbs that they left, and I'm smart enough to know when they're pissed on. Okay, chapter 57 just takes a break, talks about some different things before we get back to what's truly important, the life journey, the life test, and finding ourselves. To the ancients, planets were called wandering stars. Guess what? The ancients knew more than we do. And all the scientists and all the brilliant people down at JPL, and that JPL mission director who looks like Elvis, who led the mission to Mars. The ancients knew more than those guys and all of us collectively. So what are planets? We don't know. Repeat that. What are planets? In my opinion, we don't know. Didn't Matt Damon show us what they are? No. NASA lies about everything. So planets are likely not what NASA says they are. Well, they lied about all this, but then I'm supposed to accept everything they say about all this. No, see, that's a fool would think that way. NASA is a main chapter in the mass deception of the control structures novel. When the subjects are this big and complicated, it's best to first take a step back. Here's an inventory of what we know. We know we live in a control system run by liars. So it's like that Jim Carrey, liar, liar, but just less obnoxious and a little bit more subtle so the people around us don't notice. We know NASA, funded and founded by Nazis, is the heart of the system itself. Once they pass off a ridiculous moon landing, then they're never to be trusted again about anything. See, that's just common sense, right? I wouldn't trust a tour guide at Cape Canaveral to tell me where the bathroom is. Let me get this straight. The founding core of NASA are German Nazi scientists admitted in Operation Paperclip and all the things we've heard about a million times, and they're JPL psychopaths like Jim Parsons. Then they try to pass off an obvious fake moon landing, and I'm supposed to believe what they tell me Saturn is? What the hell is a gas giant? I had some chili last night. I'll tell you, I could tell you what my gas giant was, but it ain't probably the same as what Saturn really is. And let's say it's what they describe it as. Saturn is as they describe it. What was the center of gravity in space that didn't exist that brought all those molecules together? What were they all drawn into to form that sphere? Why did it form a perfect sphere? Why not Tyson's oblong spheroid? I would sooner believe Saturn was a type of cupcake than a gas giant as NASA describes it to me. I don't know what it is. I'm not arrogant enough to say I know. Maybe there are things like planets out in space. I'm just telling there's no way I'm going to take NASA's word. I'm going to look for the deception. They took a picture of the planet Pluto in 2016, and the exact shape of the cartoon dog Pluto was clearly embedded in the picture on the planet's surface. Also, Pluto, a planet that is too faint to ever be seen by any sort of lowly earthly telescope, was lit up in the photo brighter than the Superdome for Monday Night Football. How'd that happen? Did the little rocket satellite thing passing by Pluto whip out a massive spotlight with a rusty arm? If one part of a story is bullcrap, then it's all bullcrap. But think how many times we've gone the other way, desperately wanting to hold on and believe, well, I think the moon landing's fake, but they wouldn't lie about this. See how illogical that type of thinking is? You know, she cheated on me between the years 2009 and 2016. How often? Every day. But I think we're good now. It doesn't work. Let's return to some basics. Remember the first rule of truth. One part bullcrap, all bullcrap. Or let's use something called the 180-degree rule in this realm to find the truth. 180 degrees. If the system says the moon is a rock, it tells me it's probably anything but a rock. If NASA says the moon is mostly granite, I'm more apt to believe it's mostly a banana. If the system tells me Saturn is a gas giant, then that tells me it's probably something else. Probably maybe anything but gas. Sure, sometimes they have to tell the truth and they leak the truth, no doubt about it. And, you know, they have to do that. Or they can't lie about do 180 degrees on everything. Okay, or eventually they'd be found out. But trusting them is never going to be my default. I'm only going to trust after I look at it myself for like months and they're going, wow, the system in this case is actually telling the truth. They know in most of these things way out there in the solar system and all that, it's not like a bridge right in front of you. They know we can never test it ourselves. So they tell the masses that the planet Uranus smells like farts. A real news story. Uranus smells like farts. Youranus. Smells like farts. But they spelled it Uranus in the astronomy.com article. On the other hand, this is sometimes how truth can be dropped in this realm. On the other hand, if the system, in like a joking fashion or just complete trivial nature, says the moon is made of cheese, and this theme repeats over and over in our life script, decade after decade, lifetime after lifetime, the moon is made of cheese, then I don't really think it's made of cheese, but that tells me, why is this laid down in the script for lifetime after lifetime? It tells me they're dropping truth. The moon is likely something else. Probably not cheese. I think hearing about the moon made of cheese our entire lives means something. Again, I don't think it's a baby Swiss. Just something else. Not what Armstrong, he pulled the dirt and the dust with his glove, and Buzz Aldrin out there, he brought a six-pack up, and where was the 500-pound heating and air conditioning unit needed in the LEM to keep it hot and cool in plus 220 and minus 220? It never talks about where was the 500-pound heating and air conditioning unit. Somebody, I'm just going off book, but somebody brought this to my attention recently about heat exchange in air conditioners. In the sun, on the moon, it's supposed to be plus 200 to as high as plus 230 or 240 degrees. Every air conditioner you've ever come across, what does it do? It's blowing out hot air. The air conditioner needs to blow out hot air. Where was that hot air being blown out in the spacesuits? They have a hole between their legs and the hot air was being blown out there, or the LEM, the 500-pound heating and air conditioning system that would have needed to be on the LEM, which was the equivalent of three sheets of Reynolds wrap. Where was that hot air blowing out? Was it blowing out all over the surface of the moon? Is that why they say there's actually a little bit of an atmosphere on the moon today? Because the LEM created one with its heating and air conditioning unit? How can we apply these general rules, the first rule of truth, the 180-degree rule, in examining what the system tells us? It's pretty simple, but it's fun to go over these basics. It's good to rub the basics in again. For example, as we, acting like Sherlock Holmes and trying to figure out reality, that's what we reality junkies do, we might not have a clear picture of who the perp is. We don't know who the perp is. But if the system announces the name of the perp is Joey Parker, then we know for sure it's not Joey Parker. If they're telling me it's Joey Parker, then it's not him. Now, that doesn't solve the case on its own, but at least we don't have to search Joey Parker's house. Joey's clean. The rule of 180 degrees can be applied to the system's script because it's a perennial liar. Go ahead. What's an annual versus a perennial in flowers? Never get that right. If I got that wrong here in my flower analogy, the system is a liar over and over again. It's not a one and done liar like some types of flowers. So I don't know if I used the right term. But go ahead, plug in almost any example here regarding the script the system has delivered over the decades and see where it leads. Of course, this assumes you're not using CNN and Snopes as your reference sources. Hey Siri, hey Sirius, why was the Civil War fought? Why was the Civil War fought, Sirius? The Civil War was fought over slavery. I don't know what'll come back. I don't have those dumb devices. But if that comes back as the answer, then I know it wasn't fought over slavery. Hopefully that was a factor, but I assure you with these creatures that was low down the list, not the primary driver. No. If that's the answer from Siri, it was more likely fought over a roll of paper towels. Of course, I'm not saying Siri, a system mouthpiece, lies about everything. It's going to tell you the weather, it's going to tell you a bunch of truth, of course. But just, it lies about the big, life-altering things that shape human perception. Just that little bit over there it lies about. It will very successfully tell you the date Casablanca was released. So non-NPCs, non-wardens of this realm doomed to come back over and over again, the eternal spirits hopefully listening to this, rejoice, rejoice. The lies and darkness all around us is actually an essential ingredient in helping us see and then win. Would you be where you are today personally if 9/11 never happened? Think about that. Would you be where you are personally? Spiritual progression, human progression, empathy. Would you be where you are today without 9/11? Would you understand what you do today without a smiling and jovial Robbie Parker? No way, of course not. It's on the table that the minions are playing the exact role they're intended to play in this realm, as sick as that is, as sick as that sounds, to assist our spiritual journey. This realm is backwards and inverted. Here's a very interesting question. Can the avatar, / the body or the rental car here, can the avatar and the spirit or soul progress together and level up together and hold hands and go up together? Or is one conflicting with the other? See, the way this realm is structured, they cannot go together. Absolutely not. Because they have everything they've associated with the avatar as these lower chakras. So I'm not an expert at those topics. We'll talk about more of that in the future. But they can in some degree. Okay? You can give your body wholesome foods. You can exercise and stretch your body. You can cleanse. So they can move together. Okay? But it's rare. That's the thing. It's rare, and the system certainly isn't set up. It doesn't facilitate them moving together. The avatar may love a hookup party where you can be with a man over here and a woman over here and bring in an animal same night. Oh, the avatar probably loves that. Interesting though, your spiritual progression goes the other way. When lower chakras win, the upper ones may implode down the spine like the Twin Towers. Why does it seem many of the things that screw over the avatar, or essentially screw over your life status on this realm, enhance the spirit if viewed or taken in the right way? Trials in life, of course, are a tremendous benefit to the soul and spirit. Trials in life. I'm much better off today spiritually for being flushed down the sewer by this matrix, just as Neo is far better off for being flushed, although the tasty wheat mush cereal was a setback for Neo. But meeting Trinity was a real plus for Neo, and he hated his old cubicle job in the matrix anyway. Trials, a benefit of the spirit, a benefit of the soul. No benefit without the crap, without the trial. Although it's possible for avatar and spirit to walk hand in hand and progress together, this realm sets the condition for a yin and yang between the avatar and spiritual progression. Opposing forces, that's what this realm does. It creates a zero-sum game. You please the body, screw the soul. Enhance the soul, screw the avatar. That's what the conditions this realm sets. Look at Akeem. Look at Akeem. On Zamunda, he had no trial. He just had rose petals thrown down his feet. He had bathers who he could have sex with whenever. and he just got sunshine blown up his ass all day long back in Zamunda. Only when he entered a scenario where things got difficult did he spiritually progress. People love you, Akeem. Who is that? Just a man I met in the restroom. All of this type of pondering is really only beneficial if you get past the first step, which is actually realizing you're not your body. You know, we respect the body, appreciate it, but that is not you. You are in the world, not of the world, simply an avatar for immortal spirits to experience this dream inside this now corrupted video game. If you need more proof of it, here you go. The number of near-death experiences or out-of-body experiences now around an incident regarding death or resuscitation, they're just too many now, too many to count. The testimony of patients pronounced dead, being able to listen to what doctors were doing over them, this has been documented for 40 plus years now. There are thousands of cases of the nearly deceased telling the doctor later that the exact drug they were injected with, or exact drug that was administered, the exact dosage, repeating something unique that was said in the emergency room while they were flatlined. Now, the way the atheist will try to explain this away is by saying that the person who is nearly dead and unconscious just heard it. Just heard it with their ears and comprehended it. If this is not totally impossible, it's ridiculous. Has anyone ever spoken to you while you were in a deep sleep and you remembered what was said? Me neither. If this was the case, even if somebody now is screaming at their computer, yeah, I remember conversations when I was asleep, well, that's a lot better scenario than being like flatlined. So we'll give you that, but let's just continue. You know, but if this was the case, when you're close to death and you can just understand and hear what's going on in the room and remember it and then repeat it, patients under anesthesia of all sorts, like routine operations, like a colonoscopy, should be able to repeat back to the doctor what was being administered, what was said, or what knock-knock joke was told. Do patients getting a colonoscopy, did this happen to them? I don't think so. This seems to only happen during like a flatline situation where almost everybody in the room thinks the patient isn't going to make it, and in some cases the person has been given up or even pronounced dead. Again, what about all the routine operations? Where's this testimony? Did anybody after their colonoscopy ever tell the doctors they appreciated the joke that he told 10 minutes into the procedure as he was removing a polyp? It's said many people experiencing an NDE also have a perspective of looking down at their bodies. It's said your spirit resides 6 feet over the body. Now this is possible. In my opinion, it's possible. This is why we know the term 6 feet under. We are potentially 6 feet under right now. What we know of as life is more like death or a dream to our spiritual selves. Men and women on the plains and the prairie in the 1800s didn't dig 6 feet down to bury the dead. The stories we hear, everybody dug 6 feet down. That's bullcrap. Do you know how impossibly hard it is to dig 6 feet down by 6 feet long? Into any sort of soil, rocky soil, would be unbelievably difficult. And we have this notion in our head that all the old timers put the coffin 6 feet down, 6 feet under. These are old terms. If they do it today, well, they have modern equipment. So what if they do it today? It would take 2 men 4 hours to dig in the very best conditions. Rocky soil would take 6. They barely put Braveheart's Marin, meet me in the grove, Marin. They barely put her 16 inches in the ground in that funeral. So terms to me that pervade a society like 6 feet under, ground zero, grassy knoll, and shock and awe, they're laid down for reasons. The system has laid them down for other reasons. I don't care if one can research the lineage of 6 feet under and relate it back to the need to bury the deceased in London who died of the plague way down so nobody else gets it. I don't care what the official story says anymore. I don't buy the official story, do you? Consider this. Near-death experiences are poo-pooed by the mainstream, aren't they? They're never really on the news. They aren't given any credibility by Anderson Pooper. That tells me to go the other way, and they really should be investigated. That tells me they're likely very real if the system doesn't talk about them all the time, just kind of hides it, covers it up. The system will show you what it wants, and therefore we can see what not to do. The big one is how we're expected to behave at funerals. We've been brainwashed our entire lives that it's such a sad thing, a funeral. Applying our new 180-degree rule, we should be happy as hell at funerals. We should sing and dance on the casket. For obvious reasons, what we do here in this life matters. Even if there was no logical argument to prove that, which there is, you can just feel it. The system doesn't want you in touch with those types of feelings. You can feel it. I'm just going to the dirt, like I'm going in, and a worm's going to eat me. That's it. That's it for me. Thanks for coming, jerk. No, there's more to me. And like I've said many times, why does the system get in our business all day long, get in our face and try to lead us here and there? Why would it care so much if we were just going to go to the dirt like the atheists say? So what we do here matters. Only the atheist doesn't give a shit. Now, interestingly, the classical Christian view puts the most stock of anybody in this brief little existence called life. Christians believe that all of eternity in the future lays on the shoulders of this tiny life, even though the average lifespan is the blink of an eye, considering the relative age of everything around us. It's like deciding on the Super Bowl winner just based on who wins the coin flip. The other team doesn't just lose the game for their incorrect call of heads. They're banned from the league. The Christian view is awfully harsh, in my opinion, for such a short lifetime. And as short as it is, we don't know shit about shit under age 20 or 25. So back in the day, I guess you started to get a clue at 18. Today it's 30. So all of eternity hangs on what you do in about 40 years. Which, if you go back and look from far enough away, that's the equivalent of like the life of a mayfly, which is 24 hours. Look, I appreciate there are a lot of Christians here at this channel. I really do. We are brethren. We're in the same foxhole. But if anybody was triggered, why were you? What I said is just accurate. It's just who would not consider that type of judgment incredibly harsh, considering the obstacles put before us in this lifetime? You know, nobody today, these kids today, nobody even has a clue before, say, age 30. They just came, but yeah, let me back up. What happens at age 30? Is it some sort of Klingon ritual where everybody just drops all veils, they see the world for what it really is, then you can choose the wholesome life or choose the debauchery, choose to be in the audience of the Ellen Show? Nobody drops veils at some point. They just got done K through 12 of brainwashing. The primary purpose of K through 12, the primary purpose is brainwashing. Whatever knowledge or math skills come out of it is secondary and tertiary to the main goal. Then college screwed people up even more for 4 more years, and parents were, I guess they tried, or many were very loving, but they screwed the kids up to a large degree because they're screwed up themselves. And then who knows what kind of medications the kids were placed on, and then they were bred on television and that rock and roll, and now they have iPhone. The little kids today have actual mind-controlled devices. And then, boy, if you don't really wise up and get a clue and live your life in the snow globe a certain way, for that tiny little period in the back of your life where you're supposed to have a clue, you are sentenced to hundreds of trillions of years of hellfire. It's eternity, but eternity doesn't make a lot of sense. The human brain can't comprehend it. So we'll just put it at hundreds of trillions of years. Of course I find it harsh. Something doesn't sit right with me. I'm sorry. So perhaps the truth lies somewhere in between the Christians, all or nothing, and the atheists, nothing at all. It makes sense to me that no matter what we may have signed up for, or what we were forcibly placed in, whatever happened, it makes sense that we would be given a few chances. It makes sense that we'd be given the opportunity to make mistakes, at least a few, and learn something, even if it means having to learn over more than one lifetime. Now, I do get the sense, going away from the book, that this realm is the lowest, or it's close to the lowest, for reasons we've discussed in the past. I'm not sure there's too many chances, okay, that we sense that. This is close to the lowest of the low. But then if that's the case, I've been given chances. So it seems like I'm just wising up now, but maybe it's not too late for any of us. I don't know for sure. I go with what makes sense to my tuning fork, not what some Joel Ovaltine tells me. In his stadium, he charges admission. What a joke. Perhaps the old game of Monopoly is a loose analogy for life itself. Certain things need to happen in this life to pass go and move on or move out. The game of Monopoly also implies recycling around the same board, doesn't it? If we've lived before, it seems with each passing life and passing go, the George Bush creatures here build more red hotels on 666 Fifth Avenue. I think they're adding that as a new Monopoly property in the future. 666 Fifth Avenue will be on your Monopoly board to replace Marvin Gardens. Oriental Avenue today has protests. In 2019, it wants to be called now Asian Avenue. Oriental is offensive like celestial. Only Pennsylvania Avenue is assured to never be replaced on the Monopoly board by a politically correct alternative. There are too many railroads, they say, and railroads are very manly things. That needs to be replaced. The Reading Line is going to become a Gigi Gorgeous sunglass hut. Regarding the board game, I played between, say, 6th grade and, I remember 9th or 10th grade back in the 80s. I remember playing a lot. I don't think I ever had a red hotel on like any property. I had houses on crappy properties like Baltic and Ventnor, but like never any hotels. And we never finished the game. Never remember finishing the game. And I was always losing. So there's some weird things about Monopoly. There's some truth drops there, no doubt about it. But just some strange things. Have you ever seen anybody win? Has anybody ever won a Monopoly game? Is that a truth drop? Look, the George Bush creatures seemed damned to this realm. And that's demonstrated through their actions, their behaviors, and even their predictions. Here's one for crying out loud. There's this writer named Ingersoll Lockwood about 100 years ago wrote about the last president. It's parallels to Donald Trump, and where this last president resided is about the exact same place where the Trump Tower sits today. And his other book was about Baron Trump. It's the exact name of Trump's son. It was Baron Trump's Marvelous Underground Journey. It should be called Baron Trump's Marvelous Deep Underground Military Base. And you think all this stuff pops up in society's script? You think it's just a big coincidence? What are you saying, Matt? They knew the future? Yeah, we live in a giant script. It's exactly what I'm saying. Now, everybody still with me at this late chapter knows that I'm a proponent of what I call soul token theory. We sense deep down that life has both meaning and incredible consequence. Since the system around us is obviously meant to degrade us down into Gollum from Lord of the Rings, then it's clear the correct action is the opposite, and trying to find these soul tokens and deposit them. It's obvious, like the keymaker in the Matrix. It is my purpose. These creatures, these Hillary Clinton dementors that fly around in their black capes, they're here. Their purpose is to degrade us down, to remove pieces of ourselves. This is what they do. It's likely that this is their role, like literally the cosmic role that they are intended to play. And like any warden in a prison, they get paid. They suck energy, they get paid in their own sick way, but it is their role. And in terms of any tokens you're supposed to find, you may need a certain amount of them upon your death to get out. What was that movie called recently? Yeah, Get Out. Selflessly stopping at night in the pouring rain to help a stranger change a flat tire? Receive 1 soul token. Scaring off the bird that has made a nest in your door wreath and tossing its nest full of eggs into the woods? The universe likely takes 1 soul token. I've done that in the past. I was a completely different creature, even I'd say 15 years ago. I'm just bird's nest full of eggs. Shouldn't have made its nest in my door. Toss it in the woods. I would never do that today. I play spiders outside. Now, I still kill ticks and mosquitoes, no doubt, because I figure they drew first blood. I'm just acting in self-defense here, even against the tick, acting in self-defense. I'm sorry, little tick, that this system placed weaponized syphilis in you on purpose. But, doesn't hurt the tick, it hurts us. And one other note, hey, if you're big strong guy who's had guns pulled on him like Greg, then you can stop at night, to help in the pouring rain to help somebody change the tire. Yeah, maybe I should withdraw that advice for certain young ladies. You saw that scene in Silence of the Lambs, Buffalo Bill's trying to get that chair into the back of the van. You look a little retarded, Catherine Martin says, daughter of Senator Ruth Martin. Can I help you with that? You're about a size 14. Perhaps we were born with 0 soul tokens, and you must add a certain number to be seen as a worthy spirit to pass go, for example. Perhaps the stakes are even higher. If you don't have enough soul tokens at a certain point, or upon your death, your unworthy spirit simply fades to nothing. And I'm going to say it again. That's what the Pope suggested. Mr. Don't Call Me Francis said bad spirits don't go to hell, they go to the abyss. They just go to nothing. They're degraded down to nothing. Remember the scene in A Christmas Carol where Scrooge's old partner Jacob Marley visits him as a ghost? He was wearing the chains he forged in life. Forge a chain link or give up a soul token. Concept is similar. We know there's a small group on this earth who have and carried forth occult knowledge. That just means they have hidden knowledge they don't share with the great unwashed, which is you and I. We know for a fact they've revealed information in movies and in art. Is this scene written by Dickens surrounding Jacob Marley one of these truth nuggets that reveals reality? Yeah, probably, in my opinion. Look deep inside yourself for the answer. Your take on it is far more valid than Joel Ovaltine's. Where'd you get your theories on life and death? From big organized religions in massive cathedrals where 90% of the money raised via their charity goes right back into the organization and only about 10% makes it actually to help people? Or if in the case of Bono and U2's organization through Boner or Bono, 99% go back into the pocket of the organization and 1% makes it to Africa. Isn't that nice of Bono? Do people sitting in their Joel Osteen Stadium run what he's saying through their deep inner knowing mechanism that may still exist in these people? It might be totally stamped out by now by the system, but there might be a little bit something left, an inner tuning fork even the people in the Joel Osteen Stadium can tap into if they were actually trying to tap into it instead of trying to be entertained by Joel Osteen. I heard one TV pastor talk about his ultra-expensive chandeliers and how many of them he has in his mansion. What? What kind of egotistical prick would say such a thing to the people sitting in the audience that are supposed to be there to find God? Are you kidding me? In general, just acquiring dogma because you were raised in it is as good as picking up the chicken pox. Guys, just to close with this reminder, when there's a person of tremendous prominence for their era or shapes their era, these people are almost always not constructs of the system, but in my opinion, mouthpieces of the system. Just throw out names, dominant names in their era, like Charles Dickens, his writings, Mark Twain, Aldous Huxley, Orwell. We talked about over the last few months H.G. Wells many times. A guy pops up like Joel Osteen or Jim Baker or even Tony Robbins. Anybody like that. Spike Lee is being used by the system. But obviously, I don't, did I just put Spike Lee in the same list of people that influenced their era like Mark Twain and Dickens? I don't mean to have them in the same lineup, that's for sure. But look at even Clement C. Moore. Clement C. Moore is in my family tree book. Remember the old family tree book? I said that people are talking about these mud floods now. And, a family member has a family tree book that was recompiled in, like 1901 or 1902. And it has who married who back to the mid-1600s. I mean, everybody there's a section on Clement C. Moore in there. There's a whole branch through my mother's side. Not my last name is very Irish. My mother's side is English and German that go back to the Moores. Now, Clement C. Moore helped shape what we know of as Christmas today. But Do I think he was in on it? No. I think he wrote a poem, and the system, it's the same way they would use Spike Lee, for example. The system said, this is incredibly useful for us to help shape the image of Christmas. The modern day image of Christmas was shaped by Clement C. Moore's The Night Before Christmas. And all through house, not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. Weird lines like we settled down, we just settled our brains. Anyway, I don't think my relative, and I believe this family tree book, I don't think he pulled out a chair at the dark, creepy table and said, this is what we want you to do. And, the men in black. I just think they rose it. They brought it to prominence. Okay? Is Mark Twain and Dickens in on it? No. Can they shape it in it to a degree that they want? Some are in on it. Okay, some. But I'm just saying overall, we've talked many times, very few are. Can they shape it the way they want it? Just look at like Zuckerberg, for example. I really believe, we have different... Look, here's where we agree. The whole story generally is a fraud. If major elements are a fraud, it's a fraud. We agree. We're going to disagree on the specifics, but let's just talk about the specifics. There probably was some kid at Harvard that created some, ability, peer sharing and some ideas about getting, telling your friends what they're doing. It probably happened like that. Did the CIA and other elements latch onto it and see immediately what it does, and maybe pay him a visit and say, you've got partners and secret partners, and you're going to kind of, you don't want to wear the cement shoes. So was it taken over and hijacked almost immediately? Yeah, of course. What a coincidence that MySpace just went away with bad business decisions, and Friendster just went away for a 15-year period, leaving Facebook to dominate everything. I know there's some other alternatives now, but for a 15-year period, that was it. But that doesn't mean people go a little bit too far in this truth community. Mark Zuckerberg's just an actor. He doesn't even know how to write one line of code. No, they generally observe. And we also agree that they're not creators, right? Don't we agree on that? If Mark Zuckerberg's an actor, then you have to say that the system created everything about it, just created the most incredible imaginative software and useful to a spying system ever devised. Are they able to do that? I think they observe, and then they'll see a creative thing like The Night Before Christmas, and they'll hijack it. They'll push it to prominence. And I've noted many times, I don't care if it's my relative or not, there's a lot of creepy parts. I used it in my relating Santa to Satan. What kind of creature comes down in the chimney that's lit into the hot coals, and then would he rise back up? He rose up into the air like a devil creature. Why didn't he just use the door? So it's a lot of creepiness. But just these H.G. Wells, he's not some soothsayer that came up with all these inventions, and he knew about the cell phone, and he knew about all the modern inventions. The system itself knew these inventions were coming, and H.G. Wells just acted as a mouthpiece for the system. This truth is delivered in rock and roll songs, like Bono is used as a mouthpiece for the system. And at this point, I am jaded to be totally one-sided on this. There are very few people, generational figures that, in my opinion, rise to prominence that aren't in some way related to the system. So I'm jaded in this way. Like, for as much as we all want to believe that John Lennon, for example, just was a rebel and he really cared about love, and I hope so. I really do. I don't know enough about it. I've never researched it, and I don't know the Beatles' music intimately. But just from what I've experienced and what I've learned and observed, I don't know anybody that rises to prominence like that without being in some way a very important tool of the system itself. And maybe he was, though, for 15 or 20 years, and then he started to buck the system. And people right now listening to this, well, that's what got him killed. Maybe they shoot it. Maybe it's fake too. You know what I think about everything. Almost everything doesn't hold up anymore. But Maybe that's what got him killed. It's all possible. It's all on the table. Even a guy like Tony Robbins, you think, well, where'd this guy come from? Where'd he come from? Oh, he's this guru that will change your life, and corporate CEOs, and I guess Oprah goes to him, and he became prominent about 20 years ago or more. Just Tony Robbins has been around forever. But he came out of the blue, and when he came up, we just accepted it. Oh, this is some guru who knows how to change people's lives. Where'd he come from? How did he get famous generally overnight? He did, Tony Robbins. Where'd he come from? To me, these people are, they probably have some good ideas of their own. They're taken under the dragon's wing. And I think generally that's how it works. Spike Lee, boy, we have a young filmmaker who is really good at creating racism and racial tension. So we're going to rise him to prominence. And are they in on it? Spike Lee thinks he's probably helping the situation. Especially he thinks he's helped fighting them. Spike Lee thinks he's fighting the man, and he's helping oppressed minorities. He has no clue what he's accomplishing for the system. Did Mark Twain know? Did Dickens know? There's various degrees of in on it, probably associated with how, what societies you belong to, or what you've been initiated into, and things like that. But the point is, very few are in on it, at least ever getting a seat at the last table. It's very comfortable under that dragon's wing, they probably would tell you, as Mark Zuckerberg looks at his bank account. And, hey, just probably even starts to sense what's really going on. But then at that point, you're so in bed with the dragon, in league with the demon, there's no way out. Once Walter, I've said in other parts of the book, I think, or I've written about before, once Walter Cronkite got that promotion to lead anchor, and he probably sensed all those times he spent out in Vietnam and what was going on, and a lot of bullcrap stories were being cooked up about what the United States was doing there. But once he accepted that job as lead anchor, he was just too in bed. He's walking hand in hand with the devil, and there's no way out at that point. Thought he was going to his promotion dinner, and he went to probably was like a big mansion with everybody blindfolded, like eyes wide shut, and said, Walter, you got to do a few things, my man. Probably, once they do that, Zuckerberg and these guys go down the path that long, who knows? But we know, because they work constantly. They never can stop working, like Warren Buffett. Nobody ever just goes off and retires. We know there is something going on with this, where they are actually bound to always serve the beast system.